Welcome to the Slade Ham Experiment. Yeah, we're back. Get on board the Midnight Spaceship. Pew pew, we're taking off. I'm sniffling. I'm stopped up. I'm not sick. I feel amazing, but my head feels like I've got a spike being driven in my temple and coming out whatever is behind my nose, and it's sinuses or allergies or black mold or welcome back to Texas. I don't know, but it sucks. I'm drinking oolong tea on Assam. Ooh, that's my first sip. That's actually pretty tasty. A Chinese oolong. We have stuff to talk about. I just got back from Canada. I want to touch on the Olympics. I want to talk about creativity and creation and all the good stuff that we do here at the Slade Ham Experiment. If you're not part of my newsletter, let me encourage you. If you're an artist, a writer, a comedian, a performer, a thinker, a businessman, every other week I send a nice little snippet directly to your inbox, stuff that I'm thinking, stuff that I'm pondering, all of it usually helpful. And then, of course, you get my tour dates down at the bottom. So welcome back. It is. We took a 2-week hiatus. I punted from Canada and put out a best of Canada episode. I don't like doing that. I shouldn't count that as an episode. We're only one away from 100 now. So Canada was, it's amazing what happens when you think back on how long you've been doing something. Many things we take for granted. Like, oh, it's just always, this is just how things are. You're like, wait, no, there was a period in my life when it wasn't that way. I've been playing Ontario for 2 to 3 weeks out of a month every single year since 2008 or 9, somewhere in the 2000s. And you're like, oh yeah, man, I just started going to Canada recently. No, that's like I'm pushing 2 decades now of going up there and playing some of these places. So it's become very few places in this world that I feel that comfortable, that at home. There's no danger of losing the gig. I can go up and try new stuff. I have friends there. They come out to see me. We go to dinner. It's comfortable. So I went this year, different than prior years. Maybe not last year, but years in the past. When I first started going there, those early shows in the late 2000s, I was in party mode. And it's the guy who owns the clubs I play out there was also young and single, and we're about the same age. So when I was in my 20s, he was in his 20s, and all through my 30s, he was in his 30s. And in those early years, that bar was we threw down. I used to spend probably a quarter of my paycheck every single trip just on booze and throwing down in that city, in Ottawa and Toronto. I remember my friend Brendan McKeegan, he lives in Ottawa now. I remember being at the club. We were talking about this. He came out to see me, and he sent one night while I was on stage a stein, a glass, one of these big old steam whistle liter. He filled it with ice and Jameson and brought it to me on stage. And I drank the whole thing. It's not who I am anymore. The bartender in Ottawa, it was good to see him. I haven't seen him in many years. Another person who we used to do heathen things with, Cam, if you're watching. He's an accountant now with a child. Still moonlights as a bartender. All of the people that I used to get blackout drunk with have all simmered down just a little bit. We've all grown up just a little bit. It was good to be in Canada and not the bartender I just mentioned. He's the guy. We were there many years ago. I was there with my friend Sam Damaris. We were working a rare week together in Canada. That never happens. And we had gone out to this bar after the show. And this kid, Cam, had been, he's an obnoxious dick. I mean, he's, you are, Cam. And he pushed buttons, and he used to be aggravating, and he used to enjoy it. And he had that Canadian hockey player mentality where he just liked punch me in the face. It makes me feel good. He's that guy. So I'd almost whacked him with a pool stick while we were shooting pool before we went out to this bar. And then we go out to this club with some of the staff, and he's there with us. And I think he had swatted a drink out of Sam's hand or something on the dance floor. And so we got out to the outside, and that's what Sam, open hand, slapped him. You could hear it echo down the street. That was all those early years of Canada. Have I told that story before? This time around, everybody's grown up. Some of them have real jobs. They're all professionals. Everybody's got stuff to do in the morning, kids to put up with. So I go in, and I'm all on fire. I just want to work on my show. Last time I was in Canada was right before I taped Signal Noise, and that was one of those things where I was like, I had to get this right. These were my last shows before I taped. So all the pressure was on to do the show in the right order, to get all the words right, to get all the jokes right, to learn it all. Pressure. This time was so much purer because I'm just playing with ideas. What's the new show? I don't know. I ran it earlier this year at the Improv. I did an hour of that. I'm probably only keeping 15 minutes. Then I rebuilt some stuff. I'm probably at a phase right now, having done almost 0 shows this year, where I've got 30 to 35 of new stuff that's not on the last special. It's not previously recorded that I'm working on for the new special that I'm happy with, where I'm like, this is show ready. And then I got another 25 that's like, they're still good stories, they're still decent, but they're not beat into shape yet. Canada was so good. There were 2. I work in big chunks, and if you're a comic, this is my process. I don't know if this helps you at all. But when I'm doing an hour on stage and I'm working on a bunch of new stuff, I kind of have to do it in a certain order, get the beats down. And I work on one piece at a time, one story at a time. It ends up being like 6 minutes at a time, so it's not like I'm working on one line. But I got this stabbing story. I'm telling the story about, you can't really see it, but there's a many 2 decades later, there's a scar here from a steak knife. And I wrote a version of this story. I first wrote it for the stage way back in 2010, and I did a version of it that in hindsight is embarrassingly bad. All the beats are there. All the right story points are there because it happened very similar to how I told it on stage. But the punchlines weren't. And then I wrote a version of it for the Nervous Breakdown. I wrote a prose version that I look back on, and I think it might be worse than the stand-up version I recorded. And maybe none of this is true. Maybe I'm just in a phase right now where I'm hypercritical of my past work, and I am. But, and I'll talk about that too. That bit, though, is so beat it. I'm missing the ending. I haven't figured out where it ends, but I'm soft bleeding it into an old joke that gets me out of it. I got to figure out the ending. But it's revisiting my old work this way is really interesting because I realize there are stories that I wanted to tell. A lot of this new book and this new stand-up show focus heavily on that past psychotic relationship. Not that they focus on it, but they use that as a launching point. And it's really forced me over the last 2 months to dig up a lot of stuff I'd forgotten about. Not all of it comfortable, not all of it easy to deal with. It's been a process. But I got to write through all of this to get to the stuff I'm trying to get to. And I've had to go back and reread a bunch of stuff. And that's where reading some of that old stuff I wrote for the Nervous Breakdown, even rereading some of my old book chapters, make me realize how many deficiencies I've had as a writer for so long. And what I've been trying to remedy and make the new stuff so much better. But it's this unearthing process of looking back through your old work and your old journals and mining things that, oh yeah, I haven't thought about this in a long time, and go, wow, wait, that memory's still in there. I didn't know it was like that. It's an interesting sandbox to play in, and to be in a place like Canada where it used to be this party. I'm gonna go up there, and the next 2 weeks are gonna be blackout crazy fun, but I'm gonna get trashed on stage, and it's gonna be high fives and fist bumps and crazy jokes and madness and exhausting. This time I was able to go, and I said, I left with, I think, 30,000 words written or so, maybe not even that many, 25, so I forget, and this rough outline for the stand-up show. And over 2 weeks of stages that I love in cities that I love to play for, I not only beat that show into the first half of it is just like, right where I want it. And the book is, I stopped counting words. I think I'm close to 45 or 50,000 now, because I was doing passes on some old stuff and then churning out new stuff. And man, it just feels good. I'm saying all this to say it feels good to be doing work you feel good about. And that ultimately is what success probably is. I think I've tried to define it on here before. What is success? What does it mean? All my versions of fame and, you'll host the Oscars or whatever 20-something-year-old me dreamed of. And then 30-something-year-old me that said, you know what, man, I just want to make $1 million and be moderately famous. And then 40-something-year-old me is like, man, I just want to make a living. And now I'm like, well, I made a living. I'm great. I'm good. What do I want to do now? What I realize is so much of success is knowing that you're working towards something that matters. Is there anything I need to add to that? If you have something that's important to you, something you care about, something you want to create or contribute to, and if every day you're doing that and you're moving closer to that goal, then that feels like success. So that's where I'm at. That's why this feels so good. I've gotten some work done. It has no place to go. I have no publisher. I have no lit agent. I have no regular agent. I have no money for a new special. But I have the work. And I will be on the search for an agent. I am on the search for an agent. It's impossible. This industry is so weird and scared and fickle and just chasing its own tail and eating itself Ouroboros style. And everybody, well, what are your social numbers? We're right back to that. And we won't go into that anymore. Can we talk about the Olympics? Can we talk about the Olympics? They're on. I'm not watching them really. I kind of am through YouTube and clips occasionally. I watched the Olympic trials for the gymnastics, women's gymnastics specifically, a few weeks back. Do you know do you know where the Olympians stay when they go to the Olympics? We take for granted our artists and athletes. We assume that when we go to concerts, the band must be staying like rock stars. When we see comedians, they must be, I don't know what you think about comedians. When we see athletes, they're athletes. They're famous. They're Olympians. They're the best of the best of the best. I think the accommodations on the cruise ships I bitch so much about are better than the Olympic Village. You can Google pictures and footage of the beds they sleep in, but they're all made of recycled material, including the blankets. My Google's yelling at me. Hey, Google, why don't you stop? I didn't ask you shit. It's like she's drunk. She's a piece of 20-year-old technology. She's probably 7 years old. She acts like an actual 7-year-old. Anyway, these beds, the bedding, the pillows, the little bitty mattresses, the cardboard bed frames, this recyclable horse shit that they put the best athletes in the world in. And I'm certain part of the argument is so that they won't have sex in the beds. They'll make them fragile and breakable, and then somehow 10,000 of the world's most attractive, physically fit people won't just magically. Of course that's what's going on in the Olympic Village, you knucklehead. You might as well just make it safer. Build structurally sound beds, soundproof the walls, let the athletes next door get some sleep, and let the rest of these things be the rabbits that they are. They get paid nothing. Nothing. If you go to the Olympics, it costs money. You got to get there. I don't know how they put you up outside of the Olympic Village. I'm sure you're fed in there. I'm sure all that gets taken care of. But monetarily, there's very little. If you go to the Olympics and you're famous, probably a lot comes from it. If you play a sport people care about, a lot comes from it. If you're Simone Biles, you got a good story. You're extraordinary at what you do. So extraordinary that you broke the scoring system. If you're that level, celebrities will come out and watch you. I bet you got Taylor Swift in the stands. You got famous people watching you at that point. But if you're part of the men's skeleton, wait, that's not a winter event, a summer event. If you're the dude who rides the horse in that dance, that horse dancing, right? Who's America's horse dancer this year? Do we know that person? The official horse dancer? Do we know how much money is the Korean archer make? Like, some of these people, no one cares about their sport. Not even a little bit. We care about swimmers. We care about gymnastics. Somebody's a professional kayaker. Is kayaking a sport? I don't really know a lot about the Olympics except for breakdancing is in it this year. And I think it's a tragedy that Alfonso Ribeiro didn't win in the 90s. It shouldn't have taken us this long. But what you get depends on the sport. Some of these people have trained their entire lives, especially the Winter Olympics. Those are the ones where I imagine you just get the shit into the stick, right? Nobody cares about cross country. Nobody cares about any of that. What is it, ice fishing? Is that an Olympic sport? It should be an Olympic sport. Definitely the Winter Olympics. But if you're LeBron James, I bet you don't have to sleep in that plastic bed because people care about basketball, especially American basketball. Do you know that the 2012 Olympics, the basketball team rented a private cruise ship or yacht and just stayed out there on the water so they didn't have to deal with, Olympic people? Some countries are better than others. If you win a gold medal, there's usually some sort of compensation. I think America pays like 30-something, 37,000 or so if you win a gold. Singapore tops the list. I think Singapore's $750,000. Qatar kicks you some money. They're rich. But it's arbitrary. Countries just give you what they want. A lot of these athletes come back, especially the ones from poorer countries, and just sell their medals. $30,000 for a gold. That's not half bad. There's probably a whole market for it. Train your whole life to go out there and be the best in the world at something. They give you a shiny ass necklace and you got to sell it for food. Like we are. And that's not even considering how much money flows through the Olympics. Paris has spent, certainly, I'm guessing, in the billions, plural, of dollars. France has for the Olympics. It has to cost that much. And the IOC is a corrupt nightmare. I'm not sure what they contribute to it, but all of the money goes everywhere but to the athletes who are actually the ones putting on the games. And it's all networking and national pride and a chance to do all the good stuff, blah, 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 global wealth, whatever, fair. It's all so silly. But it is extraordinary to me to watch people of that caliber do things for love of the game. I know some do it for celebrity. But some of these kids are just exceptional. And they're out there doing this because they love it. And that's what gets my attention at the Olympics. I watch the Paralympics for the same reason. I don't understand anything about the Paralympics. I have no idea what qualifies you. I refuse to look this up. That's how I want to know, but I don't want to know. Is there, wait a second, is there a standard for what you have to be deficient of to join the Paralympics? Is it just physical disability? Or is it mental disability too? And do those people compete against each other in the same event? Like if there's Paralympic badminton and one person is missing an arm and one person has an IQ of 74, do they have to play each other? Or is it just the people missing arms that have to play each other? And if it's badminton, can you be missing both arms? You only have to miss, like, what is the standard for if you're missing a finger? Does it count? What if you're missing the index finger or your pistol hand and you're the shooter in the Paralympics? Or you're missing your eye? What if you're a blind shooter? Can you? I don't know. Is there water polo? Are there water polo players with missing a leg? That would be, you should get 4 extra points when you start if you're missing a leg and you're a water polo player, because you got to do that swirly. You ever looked at the way water polo players keep themselves up? You just think you just do the regular kick thing, but there's like a whole figure 8 scissor kick to it that keeps you stable and up. Because I used to watch water polo thinking those dudes were just standing in 3 feet of water. And I was like, this is the dumbest game ever. You just some grown-ass men throwing a ball around in a pool. And then I was like, wait, that pool's like 20 feet deep. When they showed the underwater version, I was like, they're swimming the whole time? Whew. Makes me tired. Water polo was Captain Archer's favorite thing to watch on Enterprise. Hear me sniffling? All right. What else? I've just been rambling this episode. I just needed to get an episode out. It's the 99th one of these, and I've been off for 2 weeks. Sometimes you just got a brain dump. A lot has happened. A lot's going on. I'm not going to talk about politics. I'm not going to talk about world trauma or the Middle East. Someone else can go figure all that out. I do know one last thing before I go. There is and I looked it up because I knew there had to be a name for this. Turns out it was coined by Michael Crichton, of all people, the author of Jurassic Park and Westworld. He called it the Gel Man fallacy, named after something I'm not going to go look up. I don't remember it. GELLMAN. 2 words hyphenated, if you want to go look it up. What it refers to, though, and this, I saw a news story. I was flipping through something. It popped up, and it was about these military bases in the country of Niger. There was a coup there a year or so ago. They overthrew the government. They're tossing out. They've killed the whole relationship with the United States diplomatically, which means that the 2 bases that we had built up. You can go watch a Slade Runner about this that shows some of the bases there. But there was Airbase 101, Airbase 201, 101 in Niamey and 201 down in Agadez. And I read this article that was about the closing of those bases. And this article was littered with inconsistencies and fallacies and misrepresented claims, and not anything egregious, not anything that would make you go, oh, wow, yeah, that's fucked up, but just stuff that it's obviously not true. They would say things about Airbase 101 that clearly they were talking about 201 and vice versa, and some of the things about some of the people that were there, and there were some just incorrect things in the article or misrepresented. And I remember reading it thinking, well, wait a second. That's just this one article. This is the one thing I know about. And I can see like 5 things that are just completely out of left field in this article. So what makes me think that any of these other articles are any less full of bullshit or incorrectness or misrepresentation? I went and looked this up. And it turns out Michael Crichton came to the same conclusion and coined a phrase to explain it. But it's a note to all of us as we enter what are certain to be wild media times around an election and a lot of other hot button issues, to not take anything you read at face value, to try not to read or listen to any of it at all, to do your weather forecasting by looking out the window and not just rolling digital bones. I bid you peace and happiness, and I hope you stick around for all the things I have coming up. Shows in Houston, San Antonio, and Dallas, not in that order. August 20th, 21st, and 22nd. I start in San Antonio, the big one in Houston on Wednesday night. I'll be up in Dallas at the Addison Improv on August 22nd. And then back at the Houston Improv August 28th for a very special show with the Outlaw Comics. All the dates, all the tickets are at sladeham.com. Most importantly, if you're signed up for my newsletter, you'll get access to all of this before anything else. Go to sladeham.com. It should pop right up. I think you get a free copy of my first book just by signing up. So thank you. I will see you very soon. Go America in the Olympics and whatnot. And thanks for hanging out with me on the Slade Ham Experiment.